Boom. Boom, boom, boom. We have jumped right into it today. Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? We have got an interesting day ahead of us today. Let me tell you why. Pre-market today, we had PPI news. The market was scorching. Everything was looking good. And then we got the PPI news. That came in this morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, about 34 minutes ago. Producer price index, median forecast, 0.3%, actual 0.7. Core PPI, 0.3. Median forecast, actual 0.5. And PPI year over year, 3.4%. Core PPI year over year, 3.5%. What does that all mean? So essentially what that all means is that the prices, it's inflationary, right? So the prices of our goods have increased by year over year by 3.4%, and they have increased by more than the expected forecast. So what did that do? Well, look at the market. I don't know what else to tell you. Look at the market. It dropped significantly. Let me just type this out super quick. Sorry. I don't pick that up. I was doing my best to try to type and talk at the same time. It is so darn difficult. So if you look at my screen right here, both the NASDAQ and ES, they were up after market hours. So here's where they ended about yesterday, right here. See my cursor here? Then after market hours, we jumped up about 30, 40 points, broke the 6,800 level, and we got PPI news dropped us significantly. Now, I'll be honest, I've only been up for a little while. I just hopped on stream. I don't know if there's other extenuating factors, but it doesn't seem logical that that PPI move should have justified this big of a move in the market. Which leads me to think that we're going to make a pretty quick bounce back. Now, whether that'll happen in the morning or whether that will wait for the FOMC decision later remains to be seen. I do want to be clear, it's very tricky to trade on FOMC decision days, interest decision days specifically. The reason is the market anticipates that move, waits for that move, and will not do anything until it gets that move. And so I was very surprised, obviously, by the move on PPI this morning on an FOMC interest rate decision day. But furthermore, I think it's going to be tough to see this bounce back until we get the interest decision later today. So I think this morning's trading session is very, very risky. It could be very choppy. Zero DTE contracts are going to be elevated because of the interest rate decision unnecessarily. And so there's almost no chance you'll see me trade futures or SPX this morning. If I trade anything, it will be individual tickers. But that remains to be seen still as well, what the move there will be. So let's jump into a little bit of analysis from the overnight stuff. Looking at the daily charts here. Here's your daily look at ES. That downward trend line is now sitting just above 6,900, 6,937. We were getting closer to it with the 6,800 break, but unfortunately not quite close enough. As we pull that in closer, I do believe that we will see a significant break and a jump up to the swing high of that of 70.43. But that's not today's play. That's just me talking more about the future. Here's a look at Apple. Apple has a really nice 3-point trend line to the downside. It's a super solid play, but that trend line sits at about 276 right now. Obviously, no chance. Other than that, Apple's in a little range here. I don't want to touch it. Nothing on Apple today. AMD has this nice downward trend line. It's only a 2-point trend line, though. So it's kind of hard to play the break on a 2-point trend line break, especially one that's this steep without any other points that are really significantly close to it. It just unfortunately doesn't look like the best setup. But AMD does still have, down to the low side, that gap fill below 186.50, and it does have a gap fill above 220. Will those get there today? Almost certainly not. But those are both going to be great plays here as we come up in the future. So another thing we'll keep our eye on. Good morning in the chat. How you doing? Thank you for joining today. Over to Google now. Give me just one sec. I just got to make one quick note of something. Okay, good to go. Google, really nice move yesterday on Google. We did have the trend line break right here. There was a trend line down here that it touched about 3 times. That broke, and Google popped up about $6 or $7 off of that. It was actually a really nice move. I didn't quite catch it because it didn't look strong enough the first time, and it didn't get through the first time. It actually ended up retesting down below the trend line before it actually was able to finally make the move. So, we played that correctly. I didn't even set an alert for that move yesterday. It just kind of ran through, and I'm happy about that. I think it did fine. We could probably justify drawing ourselves another trend line here. It's not going to touch 3 times, so I'm not going to bother drawing it. But we could probably justify that. So, just throwing that out there. I do just want to see, though, actually, this trend line. I don't know where it's going to end up. I'm just kind of curious. If I draw a trend line from the gap up here through there, yeah, it's quite a bit below the price. Okay, not going to worry about that trend line either on Google. We're going to leave that where it is. Moving over to Meta stock. Now, Meta stock has been one of the more fun stocks to trade over the last few days. They announced sweeping layoffs last week on Friday. The stock price dropped initially, and then through the weekend made a nice little run up. I think it jumped up about 3 or 4% on Monday. We were able to sell puts on Friday. I did call that out in the Discord, and cashed those in on Tuesday morning for about a 60% profit. So really nice play that we had there on Meta. I love Meta. Meta's a great stock to trade. Looking at this trend line here that we have on Meta, it did break below it. So if I do move the trend line down to the break, it's only a 2-point trend line. This got close here at this 600 level. So we'll keep an eye on this trend line. It could be something that gets a bit more interesting if we get another bounce off of the trend line here. If we don't and it just breaks straight through, I'm just going to leave it as is. It's only a 2-point trend line right now. No, I don't really like the other plays. I was looking at some other trend lines just to see if you could justify drawing those. I don't see it. Microsoft. Downward trend line, upward gap fill, setting up for the most beautiful move you've ever seen. I'm telling you now, it may not come for another month or two. It could be 2 or 3 months from now that you finally see me cash in on this play. But I tell you, this 440 break on Microsoft, this thing is shooting past 443 into 450, 460, especially because you will by then have seen this downward trend line break, which hopefully gets a bit stronger. Hopefully it touches 3 times before it breaks. If that happens, this move on Microsoft from 440 up to 480 will be generational. It will happen within 3 days. And people will be going, what happened to Microsoft? What happened? What happened? Well, it's a trend line break and a gap fill. There's just room up. But that's not today's move, unfortunately. It's just not going to get there. It's not feasible. The stock price sitting below 400. It's choppy in this range. But when that does happen, that will be a generational play for options, for a swing trade. Damn, my hair's really messed up today. I just realized that. I just rolled out of bed. I got a haircut yesterday. I rolled out of bed. Here we are. NVIDIA, my golden child. Good morning, my golden child. How are you, NVIDIA? We love you. Thank you so much for doing everything that you've done for us. Thank you, Daddy Jensen. Thank you, everybody that has supported this stock. We love NVIDIA. I love NVIDIA. Okay. NVIDIA, I mean, look at this chop on NVIDIA. It has been in this basically 195 to 170 range since November. Mid-November. That is what, 4 months it's been in this chop range? NVIDIA needs to get back above 200 to resume the bull run. Jensen yesterday at the GTC conference, or maybe it was 2 days ago, announced how they thought they'd have 500 billion, I believe it was in a particular chip sales, and he said, nope, I've actually revised that number to 1 trillion. Market doesn't move at all. People are still sleeping on NVIDIA. It's absolutely unbelievable to me that people are still sleeping on NVIDIA. Did you know NVIDIA's growing sales, obviously sales are bigger, but growing sales faster than AMD. And everybody wants to jump on AMD and say that stock's going to 5x, 6x, and it probably will. They're probably not wrong. But the fact of the matter is that NVIDIA is growing sales faster than them. They have, 3-4 times as many sales. Don't quote me exactly on that. I'm just spitting that one off the head. But they probably have 3-4 times as many sales, and they're still growing them faster than AMD. NVIDIA it is ridiculous if you're still discounting NVIDIA. It is ridiculous if you think it's already made its move and it's too expensive. This stock is we are looking at one of the greatest stocks in the market of all time. You could tell me Monster Energy is. You could tell me SanDisk is. Obviously, SanDisk is over the last year, 2 years, right? But NVIDIA is also poised for an absolutely epic run. If I go to the weekly chart on NVIDIA, let me show you this. If I go to the weekly chart on NVIDIA, I mean, if you go back, let's go back 1 year to last March. $120 before this big bull run out. What does this look like to you? That's called consolidation. This is called a bull flag on a weekly chart level. This thing is going to the moon. It's not dropping below this 163 level. You got to be crazy. You got to be crazy to think it's dropping below this 160 level. This is a bull flag, and it's going to break out later this year. It's going to scorch through the 212. NVIDIA will be 250 by the end of the year, likely. Early next year, maybe, within a year. That is my prediction. I can't give financial advice, but that is my prediction. You're crazy if you're sleeping on NVIDIA. Anyway, for today's sake of day trading, we're not getting a move on NVIDIA. We're just in a choppy range, as I just said, right? Until NVIDIA breaks out of this range, it's not going to be the best day trading. Palantir. Let's talk about Palantir. Lots to talk about. Palantir has a really nice downward trend line here forming. Oh, pardon me. 1, 2 points. Very close point here. We'll see if it touches it again. This is a pretty strong trend line. Only 2 definitive touches, but 3 or 4 points have come very, very close. And so overall, I think Palantir has formed quite a strong trend line here. It found a bounce in mid to late February with the war going on. Even if the war ends soon, it doesn't mean that Palantir is dropping back to $125. No, not going to happen. When the war ends, Palantir will go up with the rest of the market. They got the best of both worlds in this situation. They pumped on the news of the war, and then when the war's over, guess what? They're going to pump again. You'll see. And then we're going to go after, Cuba or whatever next, whatever they want to do next. We're going to go after Cuba, and then Palantir, you're going to see it's going to pump again. Palantir also is getting ready to make a big bull run. I really think this trend line break here, which right now sits at about 159, is going to be very, very strong. I think we're going to see it carry through there. The swing high right now on that trend line is 200. And not only is the swing high at 200, I think it's got room above that. But that's, we're going to be patient with those moves. Really no gaps or anything on that timeline. Actually, there is a small gap here from 198 up to 201. I do want to just mark that out real quick, actually. Let me just take a second, mark that. I don't know why I don't have that marked out already. Let me just mark that out. They're going to start calling me the gap fill guy. I love the gap fills, and, the trend lines as well, but I really just love playing the gap fills. There's just so much room for, they're just very high probability setups, so I really enjoy the gap fills. Okay. Let's look at Tesla. Tesla has been on this little downward spiral here. This trend line did touch a few days ago. That's why I finally drew it. So we have finally a 2-point trend line here. The swing high on that is 500. There is a wick fill from 490 to 500 as well. That means basically once we hit 490, right up to 500. But right now, the next thing that needs to happen is we need to touch this trend line for a third time. It's sitting at 410. We need to reject away from it, and then we need to break it and get that move upwards. I think the news of the war ending, if and when we get that, is going to be the catalyst for the market that's going to push. Because if you look at a lot of the stocks that we've talked about today, they all seem to have downward trend lines, and they're all kind of moving down, consolidating a little bit. Some of that was catalyzed by the war itself to move them down. So once the war is over, what you're going to see is that this is going to pop off, and all these stocks are going to start shooting through these trend lines, breaking these trend lines, and making positive moves upwards. So I'll be watching that for opportunities to sell puts and take some day trades through that. Tesla, though, Tesla is one of the more difficult stocks to hold as a long-term trader. The reason is, if you look at Tesla here, it back in 2024, or let's start with 2021. 2021 up to $414. It actually got higher in 2021 than it is now. So we've actually seen a decrease in Tesla since 2021. Now, part of that is this right here. The move it made in 2020 and 2021 was just so insanely big over the span of 2 years that sometimes it takes some time to consolidate down from that. Here's the reality with Tesla. They're going to deliver on the Roadster. Elon announced it yesterday. They're going to deliver on the Optimus robots. They're going to deliver on the cyber cabs, or cyber robo-taxi, excuse me. And the robo-taxis are going to be highly, highly, highly competitive with Uber and Lyft. They're going to be cheaper. They don't have to tip. Like, that's really, I'm telling you, no tipping is the biggest reason that those are going to go bigger than Uber. And obviously Uber knows that. They're going to Waymo. Lyft is trying to get the Ionics, or I can't remember. Not Ionics. I can't remember. But Lyft is trying to get their own autonomous vehicles. So they all know that. They all know they need to get away from humans and get away from tips because people don't want to tip anymore. They're Uber drivers. They just don't. They just don't. You sit in the back of somebody's dirty-ass car so he can speak Spanish on his phone to his brother while you're trying to enjoy a peaceful ride. And now you got to tip the guy 20%. People are tired of it. It's not going to happen. People are tired of it. So Tesla's honestly going to make just an insane run, I think. Now, the Optimus robot. I want one of them things in my house. I need something to cook me eggs in the morning. If you see one day, this door opens and an Optimus robot walks in, and Optimus robot walks in and goes, "Oh, hell yeah." And it's gonna bring me my eggs. It's gonna put them down in front of me. It's gonna bring me my coffee. Long Tesla. For today, though, no day trades. Let's just recap and end on one more thing here. So with this big move down in the pre-market, we're going to see a gap down of about 30 points. That gap is probably going to put us somewhere in between the two gap fills, the one from yesterday that wasn't fully filled and the one from Monday that was never filled. So we're going to be in a very, very tight range where we could break out into either one of those gap fills. Now, as I said, remember, contracts are going to be inflated today. Why are contracts going to be inflated today? Well, because FOMC interest rate decision is happening today at 2 p.m. Eastern. I think it's 2 p.m. Eastern. Yes, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. Okay, and that FOMC interest rate decision will likely determine the move of the market. I actually didn't check. I usually do. Hold on. I'm looking at Polymarket right now. I want to see what they're predicting. I generally look at that because whatever the most likely scenario is always going to be priced into the market. And really what I'm looking for is the opposite of that. Okay, Fed decision in April. No. This is Fed decision in March. There we go. 100% chance that there will be no change. Yeah, I mean, we're pretty confident of that. So it looks like there will be no change on the interest rate decision. Anything other than that could be absolutely mental for the market, although it seems almost assuredly that will not happen. Mars, get over here and chew. Hey, Mars, chew that bone over there. Sorry. Mars, chew that bone. Get your bone. Get your bone. So, yeah, we're going to be in a very tight range when we get opened up this morning. And that will be that. I don't like any of the individual tickers today. There's no real good moves for them, in my opinion, ahead of FOMC. The only thing I'll be watching is the minefield of gap fills on SPX. And through that minefield of gap fills, I'm hoping we can find a reasonable play. But you have to remember one very important thing, and that is that the contracts are going to be juiced today because of the interest rate decision later. I'm going to take a look at the prices here in about 2 minutes and 40 seconds when we open, but I'm going to hazard to guess that they're going to be over $20 contracts today, maybe 25 early this morning. That'll taper off a little bit as the day goes on, and we'll kind of go from there. Good morning in the chat. Good morning. We are getting close to market open, 2 minutes away. We had a fantastic pre-market chat about a whole bunch of tickers, a whole bunch of stocks. I went off on my rant about if you're against NVIDIA right now, you are just not a very smart human. Yeah, and that's the gist of what happened. We're going to see probably the VIX. No, it's already made its jump. The VIX jumped up from 21.5 back up to about 24. It's back down to 23.22 as we speak right now, but overall VIX is moving heavy. I just got to plug in my laptop, so bear with me 1 second. We did find a little bounce of about 15 points from the low after the PPI news. When we do get this market open, we'll have final confirmation of where this gap fill would lie. It's going to be weird because the gap fill is going to drop below the other gap fill from yesterday. So on the way back up, you'll kind of have a range where you get like a double backfill. Double gap fill, excuse me. That's going to be from 6,700 to 6,710. The rest of the gap fill, I'm guessing, is going to be about 6,685 to 6,716. Let's see how it opens, but I think I'm going to be pretty close to it. I always like to guess where the gap fill is going to be. This is my prediction right here. 66.86. That is my prediction. Let's see how close I am. We're going to find out in 24 seconds. And we're going to find out the price of these contracts to figure out what trading today is going to look like. Most days, though, I will admit, when there's an FOMC interest rate decision, I almost never take a trade in the morning. It's very rare that I do. Okay, we are open. Wow, that gap did not go as much as I thought. It was only just below the other gap fill here at 66.97. Another weird move on SPX. I say that all the time. We're going to, yeah, contracts are about $24 to $26 right now, just inside of the money. Outside of the money, 24, inside of the money, 26. They're a little expensive for sure. Let's see if we get NASDAQ and ES in sync early and just kind of see what happens. The gap fill to the low side is below 66.73, so about 20-something points or so to the low side. Gap fill to the upside. I would wait till the 6,700 break and retest if I was to take that. I want to see how the market moves. I want to see how volume is over the first 4 or 5 2-minute candles and then make a decision on trading for this morning. If volume's real low, whenever volume's low and the contracts are juiced, it's just a bad situation. Even if the setup is perfect and the key levels are perfect, the move just doesn't have as much momentum to go through. And so it's very hard to get over the mountain of the contracts being juiced and volume being low. It's usually just a losing situation in that case, to be honest. SPX and futures are dropping from the open here slightly. They made a slight run up after the PPI drop. Something else I feel like must have happened. If you know it, drop it in the chat. But I feel like something else must have happened that caused this market to drop. Or at least the PPI news was the final straw, because it seems odd the way it moved off of PPI. It doesn't typically do that. Now, it wasn't good news, don't get me wrong. Come here. Come here. Chew your bone. There you go. Thank you. Chew the bone. NASDAQ and ES were out of sync on the very first candle of the day. Let's see if they sync up here. Excuse me. Google pumping nicely, actually. Okay, we are just about to enter the gap fill from today. We are in the gap fill from today. We are almost in the gap fill from yesterday. That will happen on the 6,700 break on SPX here. SPY contracts are not too juiced today. It's very important I see the volume on this next candle to make a decision on if it's worth it to take a trade this morning or not. If you got questions, drop them in the chat. Always happy to answer those. If we had a bigger drop today, we'd be able to sell some puts, but unfortunately, none of the big boys really dropped very much. Microsoft dropping 0.75% seems to be the biggest drop of any of the big boys. AMD, Tesla, Netflix all up today. I called out about 3 weeks ago Netflix hitting $100 in the next 3 months. And it was at, what was it at, $82 or something at the time. So it's already up to 94 since I called that out. We've got another 2 months on my prediction there. It's going to be over 100. Okay, NASDAQ and ES seem to be resynced up. Thank you, buddy, for playing with that. NASDAQ and ES seem to be resynced up here on this candle, making a little bit of a push. They entered the gap fill from today, did not enter the rest of the gap fill from yesterday. Obviously, I'm not entering until I get a 6,700 break on SPX and a retest. I need two things there. Volume did drop off on the second candle. I have a feeling we're going to see volume drop on the third, fourth, 2-minute candles here. Volume hasn't been great in general over the last 4 or 5 trading days, and with the FOMC interest rate decision coming up this afternoon, I do not think we're going to have great volume today either. I think we will return to that maybe tomorrow. We do have a bunch of news. Well, not a bunch. We do have some news tomorrow, jobless claims and wholesale inventories, and then we've got a big week next week. Friday, actually, no news. That's the first time in a Friday we've had no news in a while. Pardon me, my little troublemaker down there is trying to chew things he's not supposed to chew. NASDAQ and ES are synced up. ES looks to be a bit more wicky than the NASDAQ. Google really pumping. Google's moved up about $4. My long-term portfolio is down ever so slightly today. Wow, we got a lot of soul puts there. That's good. NASDAQ ES staying nicely in sync. Actually, not terrible volume drop-off on the second and third 2-minute candles there. Still looks kind of promising. I think, though, if I'm being 100% transparent, the chances of me taking a trade this morning are unlikely. I'm thinking about getting back on stream at 1 p.m. Central, 12:45 Central, I should say, for the FOMC interest rate decision. I just want to see where the market's at that point, because the reality is that we already know what's going to happen with the interest rate decision. It's already baked into the market, so I doubt we're going to see too much of a movement off of that. Hey, stop that. Come here. Go get your toy. Thank you. Yes, NASDAQ slightly out of sync on this candle. SPX having trouble breaking that 6,700 into the gap fill from yesterday. We would have overlapping gap fills, as I mentioned, if that happens. Okay, there we go. We are in the gap fill now. We're in the overlapping gap fills with the 6,700 break on SPX there. I don't like that they're both below VWAP, and I don't like that volume's a little low, so I'm going to hold off for right now and just see how the market reacts over the next 2-minute candle. It just doesn't look super reliable right now. Not the most high probability setup. And we like to trade the most high probability setups. Google's still pumping. They are now the most up out of all the big boys today, with AMD trailing just behind them. Tesla did just get back above 400. I think Tesla's going to run up to that trend line, like I said, about 410 over the next couple of days, maybe by the end of the week. And then we'll see if it breaks it or rejects from that trend line. That'll be a big decision maker there. Okay, third candle of the day. Yeah, we're dropping volume. Unfortunately, not seeing a ton of volume on that candle. ES and NQ staying nicely in sync at least. No. Come out here. If you got questions, drop them in the chat. I appreciate everybody joining today. On YouTube still, resolution with Twitch is almost over. I'm just waiting for documents from Texas Secretary of State to send them to confirm a few things, and then we should be back on Twitch probably next week, I'm guessing. I probably will go back to Twitch transparently, just because I'm monetized there, and I make advertiser money, so. But if I don't get back on Twitch, you know where I'll be, the YouTube. I do like the interface on YouTube, to be honest. I like the way the streaming software actually works with YouTube. But ES, very, very wiki. Very wiki. Much more wiki than the NASDAQ so far. Volume dropped again. So we've seen consistent drop over the first 5 2-minute candles. We did open up above 6,700 on SPX on that last push there, and we're pushing a little bit on SPX. I just don't like the volume. I can't consciously enter, even though if the volume was really good, this 6,700 retest is right where I would enter. But I just don't trust the volume. I don't trust the wickiness on ES relative to the price of the contracts. The contracts are elevated because of the FOMC. It's just not worth the risk reward today, because the potential profits from getting this 10-point move to fill the gap here is not worth the risk if it drops 5 or 10 points below with how juiced the contracts are today. Okay, pushing up a bit more, getting a bit more volume here on ES. NASDAQ new high of day, ES new high of day. I do have a 4-hour key level on the ES chart at 6760. Yeah, they didn't even make money. Oh my God, these contracts are moving like crap. About 5 minutes ago, when it had just broken, it was at 67.02 on SPX. The contract I was looking at buying on SPY was $2.10. It's higher than that now. It's $1.95. That's why. That's why it's so tricky to trade on a day like today. Also, important to note, NQES out of sync on the last candle. I know, buddy. We're going to go outside in just a sec. Don't you worry, bud. Come here. We did pump up to the 67.05 level on SPX, 67.58 on ES. Got stopped out there. Going to watch this next 2-minute candle, see how the volume comes in. It's really low. This honestly looks to me like we're just going to slow burn back up to where we opened the market. I think if we get above VWAP, maybe we'll get a little bit of a pump, but more or less, this just looks like it's going to be a slow burn kind of day with contracts being elevated. It's just not worth it. They're not moving. I'm watching the contracts on the side here as SPX is moving. The contracts just aren't moving. You would need a 10 or 15 point move today pretty quickly to be able to make decent money. We got about 50 seconds left on this 2-minute candle. Look at the wickiness on ES here. Let me zoom right in. Look at the wickiness here on ES. Really dangerous. Really, really dangerous. All the way dropped back down to 6,700 on SPX. Contracts dropped 20 cents. They will not move up that much if it goes back to 67.05. This is a trap market. This is where people get trapped. This is where people lose money. This is the day to sell puts for the end of the day, because we already know what the decision is going to be. Do with that what you will. Mars, drop that. Sorry about that. My dog is trying to chew everything this morning. Okay, that candle finished up low volume as well. I'm actually going to look at what it would cost to sell some like QQQ contracts for the end of today, 0 DTE, to sell them. Not going to make a ton of money, actually. I thought there might be a better opportunity to make some more money, but doesn't look like it. Big drop, though. Got some volume as we sold off there. Yeah, there's just not a lot of money to be made today. Thank you for everybody that joined the pre-market prep. I don't like where we're at with volume. I don't like where we're at with levels. I don't like the wickiness. I don't like the elevation in the prices of the contract. Today is a trap day. I'm not going to take any trades. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream here in just a minute. I may get on later at 1 o'clock for FOMC. I will keep you updated in the Discord and on X if I do. But if I'm being 100% transparent, I don't think I will. I just don't like the way the market looks today. I'm probably just going to stay cash all day today. And we'll be back tomorrow. I think we'll have a good trading day tomorrow, a good opportunity to get some plays. We do have some news before market opens, and then again at 10 a.m. Eastern and 9 a.m. Central. And so I do think tomorrow will be a much, much better trading day. I will be live tomorrow, 8:05 or 8 a.m. Central, maybe 8:05 the latest. We will go through the pre-market prep again on all my individual tickers, see if we have any additional plays that have popped up on the charts. If not, we've got a minefield of gap fills on the SPX chart we still want to fill. Tomorrow's the perfect day to do it. Yeah, sorry, I just announced that, Joel. I don't know if I will. I will announce it on X or Discord later. I actually am leaning towards no because the decision is almost 100% that they're not going to change interest rates. And so it would take them changing the interest rates to really move the market this afternoon, and I just don't see that happening in any world. I may still get on and watch it, but not live stream, just when he starts taking questions. But I'm going to kind of make that last-second call, just depending how everything's looking. But the way contracts are juiced right now, it's just there's nothing here for us. Keep your money, protect your capital, stay cash. Thank you, everybody that joined the stream today. We'll see you at the latest tomorrow, maybe this afternoon. Give me a follow on X for